Good afternoon, good evening. I'm Terri Wisdom, and this is Harlem Network News. And as many of you know, Harlem Network News is a grassroots Black media platform that started at the onset of COVID to ensure that Harlem and Harlems of the world are informed. We know early on during COVID, we had to jump into deep water because Black folks were walking around Harlem talking about, I'm Black, I can't get it. And soon after came the body bags. So, we jumped in and made sure that we were communicating and that there was media and messaging for our community, Harlems and the Harlems of the world. Our mission is more important than ever, especially post presidential election. It's a time where we continue to face gross inequities, and we here at Harlem Network News are determined to continuing to do our Black job. We need your donations. They are critical to keep us getting the message out. You can Zelle us, you can Cash App us, you can go to our GoFundMe. It's all Harlem Network News. But today, I have a very special guest with us that is from and of our community, and that is in the person of Dr. Tawanna Gilford. And she has been doing a lot of amazing work in the community. She had an event yesterday at the Harlem Y that dealt with what do you do when the police stop you, which unfortunately is still a grave reality in Harlem. I have been driving down the street and seen on Malcolm X Boulevard what I call a dragnet, where they had one lane open and they were just stopping everything moving. And, as I drove down there, I had my grandchildren in the car and a friend, and I was like, oh my God, I should have turned. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't know. And even if you didn't do anything, that could just be an hour while they try to figure out if there's something you did do. So this is trauma. But I'm going to defer to Dr. Tawanna Gilford. And if you would just introduce yourself to the Harlem Network News audience and let us know who you are and whose you are. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. It is a pleasure to be joining you today. Greetings to your audience, and I really appreciate this opportunity to share who and whose I am. I am Dr. Tawanna Gilford, a licensed psychologist, born and raised in a Harlem community, so I am certainly one of Harlem's own. I became educated, earned my PhD, and returned back to the community so that I could share my resources with the people that matter to me. It was my way of giving back to the community. Not only am I a licensed psychologist here in this community, but I also co-founded the Universal Stop False Police Reporting Initiative. I'm the chair of the Reimagining Policing Coalition, and I also am the treasurer of the Martin Luther King Jr. Democratic Club. So once I graduated from earning my doctorate degree, I wanted to become civically engaged and politically involved in the community because I wanted to know, in addition to my degree, how can I give more back to the community? What can I do to be impactful? I've always been a person that was all about social justice and civil rights. So it was a really great fit to join the MLK Democratic Club. And from there, it just continued to branch off, and I formed many great partnerships with individuals in the community. How I came into the social justice work was actually through a personal experience of mine. My brother was wrongfully arrested in 2013
Okay.
by an NYPD officer who was having an encampment in the NYCHA houses and created a false narrative that he observed a drug transaction, which was factually incorrect. My brother was subsequently arrested, and
Wow.
he blew trial. He went to trial to maintain his innocence. Also, his co-defendant maintained his innocence, but the jury still found him guilty, and he served 6.5 years incarcerated. So it was a difficult incarceration because not only was he wrongfully incarcerated, but the entire family was wrongfully incarcerated, which
Absolutely.
happens to many of our families, right? It just doesn't incarcerate the one person, but everyone who loves that individual and wants to see the best for them through those difficult circumstances also becomes incarcerated too. So for 6.5 years, we fought. We appealed the case. We filed many motions to try to get that conviction overturned, but we were ultimately not successful in that endeavor. But even though he served out his full time, we are still shining a light on the injustices. And this is why I turned my pain to purpose and co-founded the Universal Stop False Police Reporting Initiative, which was centered around Senator Kevin Parker's 911 false reporting bill that was passed in 2020. That's how that initiative got started, because we looked at his piece of legislation, which the Christian Cooper, the bird watcher, that was the story that drove that home. That was around the time of the pandemic. And
Mhm.
Amy Cooper had made false allegations about Christian Cooper, saying that he was harassing her. You know, she felt threatened by him when all he was doing was watching the birds in Central Park. Thank God he recorded that
Absolutely.
incident, because had he not been recording it, things could have gone awry for him. But it just showed that there was a lack of accountability for people who weaponize false reports. When you have individuals who make those false reports, there is no one saying, hey, because you tried to take someone's life, you should have some repercussions behind that too. So myself, along with two other individuals, we looked at our respective stories and said, hey,
Mhm.
if this law were in place at the time of our incidents, would we have been protected? And the truth of the matter is that with the law written as it was, we would not have been protected, because the bill as it was written had no teeth. Right? There was
Okay,
no
thank
there
you for
was
sharing that.
there was no enforceability. So that's what we worked on.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that.
Thank
And
you. Thank you.
I think that if you did a head count of everybody in Harlem and Harlems of the world, everyone has someone in their family that has been incarcerated wrongfully or rightfully. You know what I'm saying? And then when you look at that, when you look at the social issues and incidents, even if you go back to education or, economic equity, um, and then there being a prison industrial complex that makes money off of all of this. If you did a head count, mostly everybody has somebody in their family. And as you said, it impacts everyone, it impacts everything, because, I know that at a time, it was like $4 a minute to like call somebody
Yes.
prison, which they took that down, and that cost is on the family. Or families
Yes.
have people that are like way upstate or something that's really expensive to get to, or people are leaving New York City at 5 o'clock in the morning to get wherever, to get
Yes.
back, and then they treat their family members as if they're prisoners, and if they don't have certain clothes on, they might not get in, and basically it's very important to understand that, like, when you might be sending your loved one funds or whatever, you basically are sending it so they can eat, you know
Yes.
so I
Yes.
mean, it's a wild scene. You might have to buy a certain color sweatshirt or whatever, and a certain kind of towel if they want to be able to go outside and use a towel. And that is a imposition on the family. But we have to understand that all of these corporations are making money, by providing sheets, towels, toilet paper, whatever. They got the contracts. And then now they got people in prison working like for 50 cents a day, potentially making Victoria's Secrets or going out to work in McDonald's. So
Exactly.
we have to understand and not be naive about what it is, but it's
Exactly.
definitely impactful to the family. So thank you for sharing that, because everybody has a story, you know,
Yes. They say one
all
in
of
three
us.
households are touched by mass incarceration.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Well, everyone has a story, and I was just sharing with Dr. Tawanna earlier that on election day, not only was I dealing with the election day, but I was dealing with the third anniversary of my son, Ali Sam Wayman Wisdom, being shot and killed. And there has been no resolve. So it's kind of like you got to take that on too to make sure there's some resolution for your case. And obviously, this is emotionally and economically impactful because it impacts the whole family.
Yes,
So,
indeed.
and community, it spawns out. But, this has been pretty much what we've been dealing with ever since we have come, been brought forcibly for the most part to this country. And so we've got to look at that broad picture as well. So, I'm Terry Wisdom. This is Harlem Network News. I'm here with Dr. Tawanna Gilford. And would you share a little bit about, because I know you had an amazing event yesterday, so at the Harlem Y. So if you would share a bit about the event and why the event came about and what some of the takeaways were. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. So I partner with the Office of the Community Liaison, and we had an event at the YMCA. Another one of our partners was the National Action Network's Second Chance Committee. The chair of that committee is Victor Pate, who was very instrumental with the solitary confinement bill, the clean slate legislation. Victor Pate is a mover and shaker in Albany regarding the criminal justice legislation.
Great.
Also, the Public Advocate's Office partnered with us. So we had a number of support behind us for this event. The YMCA was very gracious in terms of supporting us with this endeavor.
Mhm.
The purpose of the event yesterday was to educate the community on the 4 levels of a police stop. So it was called How
Thank you.
Many Stops, What to Do if This Happens to You.
Mhm.
So we wanted to, I'm sorry, I was getting a call in. We wanted to
Oh,
educate, we wanted
that's
to educate the community on what to do. Like it was really a know your rights informational.
mhm.
We wanted to let
Wrap it up.
people know their levels of vulnerability and being stopped, and that a police stop can happen to anyone. But what are some of the things that you can do to prevent the stop from escalating to becoming something different than just an inquiry by an officer? What can take that stop to another level? We were also educated on what the difference between a search and a frisk is. Also, what the different units of the NYPD are. So we have some NYPD officers, but then we have like those critical response units. And we were just kind of given information on what to look for to know what those differences are. Like there are some units that have like the dark navy apparel, and some units that have like the khaki pant apparel, and what the differences are between those 2 units. So this was really an informational session just
Mhm.
for people to kind of know how to interact with those police officers in both on both the street and in the subway. We learned that the New York City transit system is a private entity, and that if an individual, let's just say that they have a large package and NYPD stops them before they pay, and just say, hey, you have a large package, may I search your bag? That the individual can say no, but then
Mm.
they would have to not go into the subway, because once you enter into the subway, you become part of the subway system. And because there's a
Okay.
private entity and they contract with the NYPD, they have a right to search you.
So I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm gonna just interrupt you for a
Yeah,
second
sure, sure.
because I'm not clear. What do
Yes,
you mean? And this is Terry Wisdom. I'm Harlem Network News, and I'm
yes.
here with Dr. Tawanna Gilford. But what do you mean it's a private entity? The New York City Transit people are a private entity. Who
Yes.
is the
So
private entity?
yes, New York City Transit System is a private entity. It's not us.
Hmm.
So it's a city system, but it's a private entity that owns it. So it's
Wow.
not like it's not like a city agency. It's a
Okay,
private entity, but they contract the NYPD to do their security.
I see. Okay,
Yes,
because I know, I mean, to my understanding, and this is why I'm asking the question just for clarity, because we
yes,
want to make sure everybody is informed, knowledge is power. But so when a person is a transit quote cop or transit police, do they work for New York City or what is happening? Because I'm not clear.
yeah,
Thank
they still work for New York City,
you.
but
Hmm.
transit contracts out that work, the security work to new NYPD. So NYPD is acting as a private contractee of New York City public transit system.
Hmm.
That's my understanding. These were some of the things that we learned
Yeah, these are
yesterday.
complexities
Yes, these
because
are complexities.
yeah, these are
Yes,
complexities because as we have a huge case going on right now with Mr. Neely and the chokehold
yes,
and the murder and police footage, it really is important that we understand like, okay, who's in charge and what's actually going on. Yeah.
yes. And that might be some of those complexities in that case. And this
Mhm.
is why we really need to pay attention to some of those cases, because was he a private was he entering into private territory at that point in time? Like, what legalities were there? Like, uh, the officers who responded, what protections did they have? Did they act in accordance to what's in their contract? Did Daniel Penny act out of alignment with his role? So yeah, these are some of the things that we need to
Right.
understand, because
Mhm.
he was not contracted by the NYPD or transit to act in a manner that he needed to serve and protect the public. So
Mhm.
I don't know what empowered him to do that, but of
Mhm.
course I'm not the judge or the jury in that case.
Right. Right.
But yeah, we
Well, we
do
are
have,
the citizens
right, we are
watch.
the citizens, and we have
We
to
are the citizens
understand,
watch.
what role did the transit system play, and what liabilities do they have in the murder of Jordan Neely as well. So
Yeah.
there's a level of responsibility that the NYPD has, that
Right.
Daniel Penny has, and also that transit has, in keeping
Okay.
this individual safe. But
Okay.
that's another case.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, this is
Yeah,
all very,
yeah,
very important because there's always layers and layers and smoke screens. And even as now it appears that the election is over, we're going to get whatever the surcharge is for going to Lower Manhattan. But when you're saying, oh, this is a private entity, and they're
yes.
saying, oh, the city and the state needs money, and we're supposed to pay for this, um, it raises a lot of questions.
It does raise a lot of
It raises a
questions.
lot of
It
questions. Yeah,
does raise a lot of
it raises a
questions,
lot of
and that's
questions.
why there is so much pushback
Mhm,
behind it,
mhm.
because like, they have the discretion to raise the fares, but they're still getting money from the government to fund whatever types of projects that they have. So we
Mhm.
really need to really understand, like, where our money is going, and you and I spoke about
Yeah.
that before.
Mhm.
We need
Yeah.
a level of accountability
Right.
and
Yeah.
accounting.
Absolutely.
Right. We need better
Absolutely.
accounting in this
Yeah.
city,
Mhm.
because we have to follow the money. We have to know where
Right.
the money is going.
Mhm. Mhm. And as it's been stated from the beginning, no taxation without representation.
Exactly.
Pretty much we know, I mean, and that's a whole nother conversation, that the people in the middle are paying the majority of taxes, paying at least 30% of their salary. And those that are making over $500,000 might be paying 8%. Don't quote me on
Exactly.
the numbers, or less than that. So we've got to look at, what is happening and know that we are bearing the brunt. So it was very interesting yesterday that there was so many events going on. Senator Cordell Clear, there was an event going on dealing with the your records getting expunged or
Yeah, the clean
getting
slate,
sealed,
the
clean
clean slate
slate
legislation.
bill. And there was a whole panel there with attorneys ranging from Roger Wareham to Anthony Rico. What the State Senator Nairi that brought the legislation was there. Jamani Williams is there. You know, it was a powerful panel. We had a little intro by our city council person, Dr. Yusef Salam, as well as another state assembly person, Reverend Al Taylor. So it was a robust conversation with questions. There were others on the panel. I'm just not naming everybody.
Yes.
And then Ms. Sharon Salam, the mother of Dr. Yusef Salam, who has an organization, Justice for the Wrongfully Incarcerated, she has a normal Saturday meeting that is dealing with all this, and she had a meeting on policy. So I think it's interesting that all eyes on Harlem, all roads converge, and that a lot of these policing issues and incarceration issues were front and center yesterday. And I know all the events were very well attended, and obviously this is something that's very critical for our community. So I would ask you, Dr. Tawanna Gilford, where do we stand? Do you think with all of the policing and incarceration and wrongful incarceration and so on and so forth, are we rolling backwards? Where do you see us standing in this type of thing?
Right. So that's a really great question. When you think about even Councilmember Salam's wrongful conviction, which happened over 30 years ago, when you think about the assassination of our great leader, Malcolm X, and who they believed to be responsible for that assassination and those wrongful convictions, and now we're finding out who was responsible for his assassination. We really have to really pay close attention to the Black population and the vulnerabilities in the justice system in Harlem. We can no longer be afraid to call out our police force, because historically, the criminal justice system has not been favorable to Black people, right? When you think about policing in and of itself, it was born out of the 13th Amendment, which extended slavery under the context
Absolutely.
of criminality. And when you
Absolutely.
think about Black codes, right, and all of the laws that were put in place, the broken windows to just criminalize Black people and to keep them involved in an injustice system, because it's all about the commodification of Black bodies. Let's just be clear about that. This is a system designed to use Black labor to capitalize and to drive this country forward. So when you think about mass incarceration and all of the systems that we have in place that are designed to feed our young Black people into the criminal justice system, the school system, the
Thank you. Thank
ACS,
you.
the ACS to pipeline, the ACS to prison pipeline, the school to prison pipeline,
Absolutely.
using the IEPs to determine in the third grade standard exams to determine how many prisons to build in the future,
Thank you.
right?
Thank you.
And the fact that our incarcerated individuals are not counted in the censuses in their communities of origin, right? But how we're building up those rural parts of New York State. This is all by design. This is all by design. So it's incumbent upon the people in this community and our elected officials to push back on this criminal justice system and demand resources that's going to improve the quality of life psychologically, spiritually, financially, physically for our young people, so that prison is not the first option for them. And also so that, we need mechanisms of accountability for NYPD, because we do have a public safety concern, make no mistake, right? Like we do want to be safe in our communities, because that's always the counter argument when we say we want police reform, when we want criminal justice reform. There's always a counter argument. Well, what about the gun violence? What about the kids shooting? The truth of the matter is that murder is going to happen in proximity, right? Violence is going to happen to those people that you're in closest proximity to, and that is it transcends race. People are going to harm those who are closest to them, and
Mhm.
it doesn't matter what race they are, right? So we have to understand that it's just not black on black crime, right? That's a social construct designed to create and perpetuate fear of black people and to push the
Yes,
narrative of why
right,
black people need to be incarcerated. So
right.
again, I will say that it is incumbent upon our elected official to build protective mechanisms that promote safety, right? But also community
Absolutely.
policing. When I speak on panels, I always encourage our elected officials to create legislation
Mhm,
that, and also the NYPD, to change the metrics of how
mhm,
we reward and promote officers. That we should no longer promote officers based on numbers of arrests,
mhm.
based on how many weapons that they take, right? We definitely want the weapons off the street, but we want to push more community friendly initiatives. Like, how many business cards did you give out? How many families did you meet? How many tenant association presidents did you meet with this month?
Mhm.
Community building initiatives is how we want to um, promote NYPD officers in the ranks. Like, we should allow the communities to give feedback about their officer interactions. And based on a number of positive interactions that they give, maybe through a QR code, rate
Mhm.
your interaction with this officer. We can promote them based on that, because they
Yes,
come
yes.
into our communities already with the mindset that black people should be feared, right? And no one does an inventory on what biases they come into our communities with, what preconceived notions they have, and also what traumatic experiences they also bring,
Mhm.
with them, that they carry into our communities and that they use to lash out on us in a very heavy-handed manner. So we need better gatekeepers to make sure that the civilians in this community
Abs
are safe from
absolutely,
the
absolutely.
tyranny of the justice system, because it was never designed to protect us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, even when we talk about guns in the community, like this is being allowed by the government, that all these guns are coming in and they don't want to do the legislation that needs to be legislated. And, there's ghost guns, there's all these things. So we have a lot to contend with. I
Yes.
mean, we could continue to talk. I'm so grateful for the work that you do. I'm Terry Wisdom. This is Harlem Network News, and we're here speaking with Dr. Tawanna Gilford. Would you just share the name of your organization again? And then what I'd like to do, I want to segue to post election. And because you're a psychologist and you're dealing with people and the energies, just we just want to touch on post election, how this has impacted our community and how we can think about next steps to address our issues, because they are critical issues. And every day this week I'm having conversations with different public officials. I mean, in hopes of us really getting a strategic plan together, for
Yes.
how we're going to bring about change that is impactful to us. So thank you very much. Yes.
Yes. So again, I'm sorry. The initiatives are the Universal Stop False Police Reporting Initiative and the Reimagining Policing Coalition. And both are partnerships that I have with other individuals, other organizations, other entities in the community who wants to do work under that umbrella. So under that umbrella, we have other organizations who do criminal justice minded work. So like the Office of the Community Liaison, we have National Action Network Second Chance Committee. We have partnered with Breaking the Chains of Your Mind. We have partnered with
All
numerous
right.
elected officials, right? Our state senator, our council member, our assembly members. So these are all entities under that umbrella of the Universal Stop False Police Reporting Initiative. Because what we want to do is kind of like what we saw yesterday, right? We have so many different factions that
Mm.
are pushing the narrative of criminal justice reform. But, like, we must not continue to work in silos and have people feel split and torn about which event that they're going to show up to, when we're all focusing on the same thing. all of the work
Right.
is necessary. All of the work is very necessary,
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, our communities are the ones that are deeply impacted. So we must continue to work together to bring people in one room, getting the various messages from the different organizations that have
Mhm.
something to offer, because we all have our hearts in the right place. We all have the same goals in mind, and we're all working at the same population. So, I say let's all get one big day going, and we all
Okay, I
bring
hear
all of
you.
this
Mhm.
information to the community. We have to bring it to the community and just have a massive day focused on criminal justice reform in our community, because again, all we have is us. We are going to be the ones to save and help us, right? Like no one else is coming to save us, so we have to really save and preserve ourselves.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And just a reflection on the presidential election. I know a lot of people in our community were very devastated and shocked and surprised when Vice President Kamala Harris, in their terms, was not the winner and not victorious. I believe in our terms, we do have to say that she was and is a winner and was and is victorious. An amazing race was run. Um, Community came together, Win with Black Women, and all other groups that started a snowball effect. We've been a member, Harlem Network News, of Win with Black Women for the 4 years, not just from the 40,000 people. And I know that a formidable uh, organizing happened, to elect Vice President Kamala Harris. And so when she lost, a lot of our community felt that, quote, they lost. And with Donald Trump and the Project 2025s and what has come forth, how do you see this impacting our community? And what are some next steps? Because Donald Trump is the president elect, and we've got to deal with him. So how do we win coming out this gate?
Right.
In your
So
opinion?
I in an effort to be transparent, I'm a registered Democrat, and I've never voted for anything other than Democrat. But this election, I went to the polls, um, being a little disappointed. I was describing myself as a disappointed Democrat,
Hmm.
because I felt unheard.
Okay.
I felt invisible by the
Mhm.
party,
Okay, I hear you.
because I was someone who, since 2022, I had been using my social justice page to kind of vocalize what some of my disappointments were. And this was at the midterm, what some of my frustrations were with the
I hear
party.
you. Thank you for
So
speaking truth to power.
yeah. So I was not surprised, right? Because the conversations, the number of people that had become more vocal about their frustration had
Mhm.
grown. People had
Yes.
become frustrated outwardly about a number of things,
Mhm.
particularly the Gazan war,
Absolutely.
and the mass killing of children and women. And you
Mhm.
know, we as women, we're nurturers, right?
Absolutely.
And there's a message of humanity that no matter how difficult times are, that we just always pull together during tough times. But there's always messages of preserving life, and protecting the women and children. And when people see imagery of the opposite happening,
Mhm.
there is this dissonance, right? That people feel
Right.
uncomfortable with, that was never resolved. So, with
Not
that
fully
said,
addressed.
right, not fully
Correct.
addressed. And then when people are feeling pain in their wallets, and that's not addressed in a meaningful way that makes sense to the everyday person, you see results as we did, right? So when you look at the presidency, for me, and I'm speaking as myself, not
Right.
as any
Yeah.
representative
In
of
your
this
individual
organization in my
capacity.
individual.
Yes.
For me, I took it as a protest vote. I saw it as
Mhm.
a sign of resistance, right?
Mhm.
Because some people will say, "Oh, we need to vote third party. We need to have a third party candidate." But I think
Mhm.
that people voted out of their frustration with how things are going right now. Donald Trump is not the ideal candidate, but people were frustrated with how things look right now. We may end up regretting this January 21st, right? Some of us are regretting it now,
Absolutely.
but it's an opportunity for the Democrats to course correct, right? This is an opportunity for us to hit the reset button and figure out what went wrong. But what I would like moving forward is that the Democrats not shy away from hearing constructive feedback. What I noticed this time around was that the leadership did not want to go into those pockets of pain and hear those messages. When you think about Donald Trump, he went to the Bronx twice. He went to Washington Heights. He was not afraid to go into these deep pockets of pain and deep pockets of poverty to hear people's pain and frustration. Like, to me, I think that that's what kind of like ignited his fire, like talking to the angriest of the bunch. And I think Democrats really need to take a little bit of that and just kind of be receptive to hearing what people's frustrations are and to give people some semblance of, I hear you, I feel you, and I'm going to do my best to make it better. So, with that said, and I'm going to close on this point, I don't think that all is lost, because when you think about the presidency went to the Republicans, but the races beneath that were heavily Democratic, right? Even in those swing states, even in those blue states that were like right leaning for the presidency, they still maintained their Democratic flavor in their local elections. So what I would say to my local elected officials is that we need to create legislation that's going to counter Project 2025 and all of those Republican initiatives. Like, I don't think that it's a bad thing for the states to build states' rights that protect reproductive rights, that's pro freedom, right? That's pro accountability, that's going to protect us from Project 2025. I think it would empower our state to do right for our very diverse population that we have here, right? Like, New York State has the potential of becoming a very great state for many people if we create laws that look at Project 2025 as a blueprint, and us creating laws that protect us from every single thing in that 900-page document that is designed to tear us apart. We can counter it. We can get ahead of it. This coming legislative season in January, our state assembly members and senators have work to do, but I believe in them because I believe in democracy and I know that it works.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing those very key points. And I definitely think it's about mobilizing. It's about understanding what really happened. It's about people looking at if whatever things they did not do, and they did a lot, but looking at what you did not do. And this is not a status quo time. And Democratic Party, Republican Party, a lot of people are feeling it's about policy, not necessarily about about the party. But what we also have got to look at is it does become the haves and the have-nots. It's a whole economic thing that is going on. And yes, New York State is a battleground state. Yes, Democratic Party, you needed to have spent money here. You needed to have been on the ground. You needed to have been in whatever the largest county of Texas is that has a majority of Black people. You needed to have been there. Even if you were not agreeing with, the large population of Muslims in Dearborn, Michigan, you needed to have gone and talked to them and heard from them what's going on, because we right now, and it doesn't appear that Donald Trump is going to do anything different. But right now we have it may even be worse, but right now we have a world atrocity going on. We have mass murder, we have genocide, and right now our tax dollars are funding that. And that has to stop. And it's not the first time that citizens have had to stand, because definitely the war on Vietnam is that blueprint. So
Exactly.
we have a lot to contend with, but I think instead of us really being on the defensive, and we got to look at Project 2025 and combat that, but we've got to come up with a body. And that is why here at Harlem Network News we are speaking to different stakeholders in the community, to public officials, to citizens, so that we can get some plans going. And I mean, a lot of people stood behind Kamala Harris. So it may be a time that Kamala Harris is going to have to step up in leadership, but somebody's going
Exactly.
to have to step up in leadership for us to be strategic to change this paradigm. So
Exactly.
a lot said. And just on another note, I'm Terri Wisdom. This is Harlem Network News, and I'm here with Dr. Tawanna Gilford, but and a licensed psychologist in our community, of our community. I know that a lot of people were hurting from this election because they had put so much into it. And that's a great thing that we engage publicly. But because our communities, our Harlems and Harlem of the world, the Black and Brown community, we're walking with a lot of trauma, more trauma than a lot of people were, post-slave trauma, all kinds of trauma, Willie Lynch trauma. We got trauma. And so when you drop something like this, a lot of people were very devastated, crying, angry, feeling hate when they didn't want to hate. So what are some of the self-cares or just thoughts that you could just give on a broad stroke as a psychologist to our community? And then we're going to do
Yes.
some closing statements, because we've been having a good, robust conversation.
Yes, I
Go right
love
ahead.
your last question. When it happened, I allowed my family members and myself to just kind of process it. But I reminded them that we have to use the tools and the resources, our personal resources. We have to lean into ourselves and think about other difficult times that we've been through in our lives, individually and collectively. And we have to use some of those same tools to get us through this moment. But I also encourage them to lean into themselves and think about making themselves whole again. That in the midst of the election and all of what we have been through, they're still human beings, and they still need to take care of themselves so that they can be there for themselves and for the people who need them. So I would say, number one, don't overindulge in the media, because the media will consume you, trying to find answers and trying to make sense of it. And by gorging on the social media and news outlets will only drive you insane. So maybe limit the amount of exposure and amount of time that you invest in informing yourself on the whys and what could have been done, but then turning the TV off, putting the phone down, and enjoying the actual people who are in front of you. Spending
Mm,
time with your loved ones. We are approaching the holiday season, which is a time for family members to get together. And generally, outside of an election year, we love to eat, we love to celebrate. I would say to get through the holidays, to survive the holidays, maybe avoid the political conversations, especially if those were contentious conversations throughout the election season. Maybe all agree to just not have those conversations, but to take that time to catch up on other areas of each other's lives. Maybe bring some games, some card games, Monopoly, anything to distract from conversations about the elections. If there are those people who do not have family members to spend that time with, maybe are leaning into another type of social network, a friends group, maybe a hobby group, maybe joining
mhm.
a friend and their family members for the holiday, but to not just sit home and reflect on the election, because sometimes that'll push you into a downward spiral and will cause you to become even more confused in a state that already makes no sense. So to just kind of love on yourself. If there is a favorite recipe that you have, make it. If there is a favorite memory that you have of a time back then, savor that memory. Take extra time to just savor little moments, savor morsels of food, savor your favorite beverages, but make sure you tap into all of your five senses and just move further and further away from this election experience so that you can kind of like return back to some semblance of normalcy.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so
You're
much for
welcome.
that,
You're
Dr.
welcome.
Tawanna Gilford. And
You're welcome.
I would just add, I think that's great that we have to get ourselves back to some normalcy, get to some self-care with the ancestors that we all came from, whether we came across with the Mayafa or we came voluntarily, but we know that our ancestors, even if they were in the Caribbean and South America, they were part of the Mayafa too. So let's know that our ancestors still cook great food, still adorned themselves beautifully, still laughed, still loved, still took care of their children. So we've got to do that. And obviously we got double jobs because we can't consume ourselves with it, doom and gloom, but we got to pay attention and we've got to get a strategic plan together.
Yes.
So our plates are full, but let's
Yes.
not sleep that and sleep because the enemy is not sleeping.
Yeah.
And then somehow we've got to energize ourselves with healthy food, with exercise, with all of those things.
And our faith, right?
And
Like
our faith and
we
our hope.
yes,
Yes.
we are a people of faith.
Mhm,
And faith has nothing to do with a specific religion, but
mhm,
it's being able to kind of look at an entity outside of yourself and have
mhm.
trust that things are going to be okay.
Yes.
So we
Yes.
have to tap into those higher powers and know that things
Right.
will be okay and this too shall pass.
And we have to, and that everything has a rhyme and reason. And sometimes when bad things happen, as you said, like with what happened with your brother or, my son being killed, that has
Yes.
made me have to get into action and align myself with other like-minded people. So we
Yes.
continue to do the work. And on that note, if you would just give us a brief closing statement, Dr. Tawanna Gilford, we'd appreciate it. And how folks
Yes.
can get in touch with your organization. Thank you.
Yes. So, again, my name is Dr. Tawanna Gilford. I'm a licensed psychologist here in the community, co-founder of the Universal Stop False Police Reporting Initiative, chair of the Reimagining Policing Coalition. I would like to thank you, Ms. Terri Wisdom, for inviting me and having me as a guest on the Harlem Network News. This has been a long time coming. You and I have been speaking about
Yes,
this for a
yes,
number of
yes.
months.
And
So I am
beautiful.
the honor. I feel so honored to be a part of this experience. I'll close out by saying that I really am honored to be a person in the community that individuals trust with being a messenger, a credible messenger in our community. I have to thank God first for putting
Mhm.
me in a position to do the work that sometimes may feel uncomfortable, but is very necessary to
Absolutely.
do.
Absolutely.
And is very much needed. Um, so, how to get in contact with me? Folks can email me at dr.gilford, GILFORD, 2012 at gmail.com. That's dr.gilford, 2012 at gmail.com. Again, that's Dr. Tawanna Gilford. And I could
Mhm.
be reached at dr.gilford, 2012 at gmail.com.
Okay. All right. So thank you, Dr. Tawanna Gilford, for all the great work you do. And I just want to end this or begin this with just a prayer and a tribute to one of our brothers that has transitioned, and that is in the person of Byron Al B, quote, Al B. Hollingsworth, who transitioned on November 7th of this year. He was 49 years old and, lived in the Bronx, but did Harlem at school and was part of a lot of Harlem activities. He was a close older kind of big brother to my son, Ali Wisdom, who has transitioned. And his brother was my son Ali's very best friend, Dorian, from 3rd grade. And there's a lot of folks marching out in different directions. If it's not gun violence, Byron succumbed to cancer,
Oh,
which he only found out about a short while ago, like 40 days. So, in
wow.
a lot of ways with medical things and this and that, we've got to stay vigilant. Sometimes, it's the economics or the medical, treatments that we can get or not get. So there's a lot to be said. But this was a young, vibrant, strong, promising Black male with a family. So,
Yes.
as you said, it's not only that person, but systemically, we're moving out, if it's not gunshots and at younger and younger ages. So I just want to salute you, Byron. And I know that you're watching over us in heaven and doing it in another way. And we'll be laid to celebration at First Corinthians. I believe it's this Thursday morning. So prayers
My
and blessings.
prayers, my
Yeah.
prayers to his family and his loved
Yes,
ones.
yes, yes. Thank you. And this is Harlem Network News. We need your support. We need you to donate. We need you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you have stories to tell, we need you to reach out because we are the voice and the drumbeat of Harlem. And media is impacting a lot of things. When you said, for folks to, come kind of off the media, but we're being bombarded with so many things that it's hard for us to discern what the truth is, what the fake news is, the folks that are coming for us and, playing us with what's really happening. So we need our own messaging. We need to tell our own stories. So thank you
I
so much.
wholeheartedly agree.
Power to the people. This is
That's
Harlem
right.
Network News. Take care. Terry,
Thank you.
love y'all. Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Tawanna. Thank you. Have a great day. Have a great evening. Thank you.
You as well. Thank you.